Here's a number I want you to sit with for a second. That's the percentage of Americans living paycheck to paycheck right now, today. Not people who are homeless, not people who are unemployed. We're talking about people with jobs, people with salaries, people who look, from the outside, like they've got it together. People who drive decent cars, take one vacation a year, maybe even have a 401k they've never actually looked at. 78%. And here's what makes that number genuinely terrifying. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. Despite decades of financial literacy campaigns, despite the explosion of money content on every platform imaginable, despite every top 10 budgeting tips article ever published, the majority of working adults in the wealthiest country in human history cannot absorb a single $400 emergency without going into debt or selling something. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why? In an age of infinite information, are we financially more fragile than ever? I'll tell you why. And it's going to make you a little angry. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name doesn't matter as much as what I'm about to show you, because today we are not doing another fluffy, cut your lattes and save more video. We are going in deep. We are going to pull back the curtain on the exact mechanisms, psychological, institutional, and mathematical that are specifically designed to keep you financially dependent, financially confused, and financially stuck. And then we're going to dismantle every single one of them. But first, let's talk about the system. Because the system has a vested interest in your financial ignorance. And I mean that literally. The average American household pays over $6,000 per year in interest alone. Credit cards, auto loans, student debt, mortgages with front-loaded interest structures you were never taught to decode. That $6,000 doesn't buy you anything new. It doesn't build equity. It doesn't compound. It evaporates and it lands directly in the revenue columns of financial institutions that spent billions of dollars lobbying against mandatory financial education in public schools. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is quarterly earnings data. The less you know, the more they earn. The more confused you are, the more products they can sell you. The more overwhelmed you feel, the less likely you are to question the terms. This is not an accident. This is architecture. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, but I've tried budgeting before. I downloaded the apps. I made the spreadsheets. I even tried that envelope thing my aunt kept recommending, and nothing stuck. Here's the truth that no budgeting influencer wants to say out loud. Traditional budgeting fails most people not because they lack discipline, but because it was designed around a financial reality that no longer exists. The old model, the 503020 rule, the envelope system, the monthly budget spreadsheet was designed in an era of stable incomes, predictable expenses, and a single-income household economy. It assumes your life is neat. It assumes your expenses are consistent. It assumes you have the psychological bandwidth, after working 50 hours a week, to manually track 200 line items of spending data. You don't. Nobody does. And that's not weakness, that's just human. So what does work? There's a framework, a set of rules, specifically minimalist budgeting rules that operate almost invisibly. They don't require you to obsess over every transaction. They don't demand perfection. They are, at their core, about building a financial architecture so simple, so automated, so structurally sound, that your wealth begins to grow whether you're paying attention or not. I call it, and stay with me here, the three-gate system. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what it is, how it works, and most importantly, why the people who already use it don't talk about it at dinner parties. Because here's the thing about real financial power. It's quiet. It doesn't post, it doesn't flex. It just compounds silently, consistently, in the background while everyone else is busy performing wealth instead of building it. Let me introduce you to someone I'll call John. John is 29 years old. He makes $68,000 a year, slightly above the US median household income. He's not reckless. He's not irresponsible. He's actually pretty smart. He graduated college, got a decent job, drives a car he was told was a practical choice, and lives in an apartment that costs him $1,400 a month in a mid-tier city. On paper, John should be fine, but John is not fine. John has $600 in his savings account. John has $11,000 in credit card debt across 3 cards. And John, despite getting 2 raises in the past 4 years, feels more financially stressed today than he did when he was making $48,000. This phenomenon has a name. Economists call it lifestyle creep. Behavioral psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. I call it the invisible tax because it functions exactly like a tax. Every time your income goes up, your standard of living adjusts upward to match it, and the surplus disappears before you ever consciously decide where it goes. Here's the math of John's life. Gross monthly income, $5,667. After taxes, roughly 22% effective rate. $4,420. Rent, $1,4. Car payment, he upgraded when he got that raise, $480. Car insurance, $160. Food groceries plus the Uber Eats habit he doesn't think about, $620. Subscriptions, he counted once there were 11. $180. Student loan minimum payment, $310. Credit card minimums, 3 cards, $290. Utilities, phone, internet, $280. Total fixed and semi-fixed monthly outflow, $3,720. That leaves John with $700 per month for everything else: gas, clothing, birthday gifts, the emergency car repair, the dentist appointment he's been putting off, and anything resembling a social life or investment. But here's the psychological trap inside the math. John doesn't feel like he's spending $3,720 a month. Why? Because those charges are spread across autopay, 3 different credit cards, 2 bank accounts, and a bunch of transactions, so routine they've become invisible. This is what I call financial fragmentation, and it is one of the most dangerous and underdiagnosed financial conditions of the modern era. When your money lives in fragmented systems, you lose the ability to see it clearly. And when you can't see it clearly, you can't make good decisions about it. John isn't bad with money. John is operating in a system that makes financial clarity almost impossible to achieve without a deliberate structural intervention. Now let's talk about the framework that changes everything. The 3-gate system is a minimalist budgeting architecture built on one foundational principle: money should move through your life with intention, not by default. Here's how it works, conceptually, before we get into the mechanics. The filter gate. Every dollar that enters your life passes through a single point of control, one primary account, before it goes anywhere else. This creates visibility. You cannot manage what you cannot see. The vault gate. A fixed percentage of every dollar, and we'll get specific about the number in a moment, is automatically redirected to a separate, slightly inconvenient savings and investment structure before you have the psychological opportunity to spend it. This is not optional. This is not what's left over. This is the first allocation, non-negotiable, automated, gone before your brain registers it as available. The flow gate. Everything that remains after Gate 2 is your true operating budget, guilt-free, category light, and structured around no more than 5 spending buckets. Not 50, not 20, 5. Now about that specific number, because this is where behavioral science and mathematics meet in a way that will genuinely shift how you think about saving. Most financial advisors tell you to save 15% of your income. That's not wrong, but it's also not actionable for most people, because it doesn't account for the psychological weight of seeing a big chunk leave your account all at once. Here's what research in behavioral economics consistently shows: the pain of loss is approximately twice as powerful as the pleasure of gain. This is called loss aversion, and it's why most people feel a visceral resistance to automated saving, even when they intellectually understand it's good for them. The minimalist workaround? Start with 8%, not 15, not 20, 8. An amount small enough that it doesn't trigger loss aversion, but large enough when automated and compounded to create genuine momentum. Here's what 8% looks like in John's world. $4,420 take-home times 8% equals approximately $354 per month, automatically redirected to a high-yield savings account or index fund. In 1 year, assuming a conservative 7% average annual return in a broad market index fund, which mirrors the long-term historical average, that's over $4,400 in accumulated wealth that did not require John to make a single active decision after the initial setup. In 5 years, that number, with compounding, approaches $26,000 from 8%, from someone who had $600 in savings. Now scale that up as John's income grows, and the number becomes genuinely life-changing. But here's the deeper point, and this is the part that most financial content completely skips. The 3-gate system isn't just a budgeting technique. It is a psychological restructuring of your relationship with money. Because once Gate 2 becomes automated and invisible, your brain recalibrates to live within what flows through Gate 3. The lifestyle creep mechanism reverses. Your baseline spending adjusts down to match available flow, rather than adjusting up to match total income. John didn't need to earn more. John needed a better architecture. We've talked about the problem. We've shown you the math. Now let's talk about what you actually do starting this week. Not next month, not when you get that raise, not after you pay off that card. Now, because here's the mindset shift that separates people who read about financial change from people who actually experience it. The perfect time to build a system is always before you feel ready. So here is your 3-step implementation plan. It is minimal by design, because complexity is the enemy of execution. Before you move a single dollar, You need to do one thing: conduct a full financial audit, not a budget, an audit. Sit down one time for 2 hours and answer 4 questions. What comes in? What goes out automatically? What do I spend without thinking? And what am I actually getting in return for each outflow? Write this down on paper, not in an app. The physical act of writing research in cognitive psychology consistently confirms this engages a different level of conscious processing than typing. You will see things on paper that your eyes slide right past on a screen. Once you have visibility, Gate 1 is open. You now know what you're working with. No more financial fragmentation, no more invisible spending. You have a clear map, possibly for the first time in your adult life. For John, this audit took him one Sunday afternoon and a yellow legal pad. What he found changed everything. He discovered $140 per month in subscriptions he had genuinely forgotten existed. He found that his Uber Eats spending was nearly double what he estimated. And he found that the minimum payments on his 3 credit cards were costing him nearly $800 per year in pure interest money that bought him nothing except continued access to debt he already owed. That single audit recovered over $500 per month of income John already had but couldn't see. This is the mechanical heart of the 3-gate system. And it requires you to do something that will feel slightly uncomfortable the first time you do it. Open a separate savings or investment account, one that is not connected to your debit card, not at the same bank as your checking account, and ideally one that takes 2 to 3 business days to transfer funds back to your primary account. That friction is intentional. You want just enough inconvenience to prevent impulsive withdrawal. Then, and this is non-negotiable, set up an automatic transfer for the day after your paycheck hits, not a manual transfer you do when you remember. An automatic, recurring, scheduled transfer. Start at 8% of your take-home pay. If 8% feels impossible right now, start at 4%. The percentage is less important than the automation, because once it's automated, it becomes invisible. And once it's invisible, it stops feeling like sacrifice. This is the vault. This is Gate 2. The psychological effect of this step is profound and almost immediate. Within 30 to 60 days, your brain recalibrates. The amount left after the automatic transfer begins to feel like your real income. The vault amount disappears from your mental accounting. This is not a trick, it is literally how human financial cognition works, and the wealthy have been exploiting this mechanism for generations. The vault is where your future self lives. Every dollar that enters it is a dollar working for you while you sleep, while you work, while you live your life. This is the beginning of what I call quiet compounding wealth that does not announce itself, does not flex on social media, but grows with a patience and consistency that no hustle culture habit can match. Gate 3 is where you live, and it has exactly 5 buckets, not categories buckets. The language matters because buckets have edges. They fill up. When one is full, you stop pouring. Bucket 1: shelter, rent or mortgage, utilities, renter's insurance. Cap, 30% of take home, not negotiable. If you're over 30%, this is your highest priority problem to solve. Bucket 2: movement, car payment, insurance, gas, or public transit. Cap 12% of take home. If your car costs more than this, you are driving a financial liability, not an asset, regardless of what the brand makes you feel. Bucket 3: fuel, groceries, meal prep, the occasional restaurant. Notice not food and entertainment, just food. Keep these separate so you can actually see what you're spending on sustenance versus experience. Bucket 4: living, everything else that makes you human. Social life, clothing, personal care, hobbies. This is your guilt-free bucket, but it has edges. What remains after buckets 1 through 3 and the vault is what you have to work with, not a dollar more. Bucket 5: the future. This is not the vault. The vault handles long-term wealth accumulation. Bucket 5 is your short to medium-term financial buffer. An emergency fund building toward 3 to 6 months of expenses, a sinking fund for the car repair you know is coming, the travel you want to do next year. This bucket is your financial immune system. 5 buckets. That's it. No 50-category spreadsheet. No color-coded expense tracker. 5 buckets and a gate system that automates the most important decisions before your emotions get involved. Now I want to talk about something that goes deeper than budgeting. Because everything we've covered today, the audit, the vault, the 5 buckets, these are mechanisms. And mechanisms matter. But here's the truth that separates people who implement a system for 30 days from people who build generational wealth. The system has to match a new identity, not just new behavior. The reason most people fail financially isn't information. You now have the information. The reason is that they continue to make financial decisions from the identity of someone who is struggling even after the system begins to work. They see a growing savings account and feel the impulse to spend it because their internal story still says, "I don't really keep money." They get a raise and immediately upgrade their lifestyle, because their internal story still says, I deserve more visible comfort. The shadow behind every great wealth building system is this: the outer structure only holds as long as the inner structure supports it. This means you have to begin telling yourself a different story. Not a fake story, not toxic positivity, a true story, one that acknowledges the difficulty of where you are while firmly establishing the direction you are moving. You are someone who builds systems. You are someone whose money works while you rest. You are someone who understands that real power is quiet, patient, and invisible to those who haven't earned the right to see it. The wealthy, and I mean genuinely, structurally wealthy, not performatively wealthy, understand something that most financial content will never tell you, because it doesn't sell products or drive clicks. The most powerful financial moves happen in private, in the background, without fanfare, without urgency, and without any need for external validation. The vault you just built? Nobody needs to know about it. The 5-bucket system? It doesn't need to be impressive. The audit you're going to do this weekend? It won't feel like a breakthrough moment. It'll feel quiet, slightly uncomfortable, almost anticlimactic. And then, 18 months from now, when your emergency fund is fully funded, when your credit card balances have dropped by 40%, when your investment account has crossed a threshold that would have seemed impossible from where you're standing today, that moment will feel like something. Not loud, not viral, just real. Here's what I want to leave you with. You were never bad with money. You were operating in a system that profits from your confusion, was educated by institutions that had no incentive to make you financially independent, and were handed mental models about wealth that were outdated before you were born. None of that is your fault. But from this moment forward, what you do with that understanding that is entirely yours. Build the gate system, automate the vault, live within 5 buckets, tell yourself a different story. And then, this is the hardest part, be patient enough to let the machine run quietly while everyone around you performs wealth they don't actually have. The minimalists aren't the people with nothing. The minimalists are the people who have exactly enough of the right things and the wisdom to protect what matters from everything that doesn't. Your financial future isn't built in a single dramatic moment of willpower. It's built in the unglamorous, invisible, automated system you put in place on a Tuesday afternoon when nobody was watching. Go build it.